This is the Antoya training video on how to cook our barbecue meats. In this video we will show you how to cook each of our standard variety of meats that we have on our menu. These instructions are the traditional ways of cooking them, and each server needs to know these cooking techniques. Remember to always light the grill and bring down the vent first after a guest orders a barbecue item. Then bring a clean grill, plates, scissors, and tongs to set on the table in preparation for grilling. The appropriate temperature of the grill should be at least 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Another good indication that the grill is ready is if it is slightly smoking. First, we will start off with the Modeum So Gui, our beef platter. Modeum So Gui consists of 3 different varieties of our beef: Kkotsal, Kkotdeungsim, and Joomulruk. Ask the customers how they would like their Kkotdeungsim or ribeye cooked, so that you have a mental marker of how to cook it for them. Always place the Kkotdeungsim first, as this will shorten the amount of time required to cook the Modeum So Gui, and ultimately give you a better control of the cooking process. It is heavily recommended that you stay at the table for the completion of the Kkotsal. Cook it on one side fully just before flipping it once in serving. When the time comes to flip it, you will see the edges start to brown, and that is a good indication that it is ready to flip. We will check the bottom of the slice here, and as you can see, this is a good time for flipping after the shrinking due to the cooking process. Try not to press on the meat, as this will make the Kkotsal lose its juices and flavor. Rotate the asparagus as well to cook them evenly. Now that it is ready for serving, stack and cut it in half in proportion to the number of guests at the table. In this example, we will serve 2 people, which is the amount of people that the Modeum So Gui is intended to be made for. As we move the Kkotsal to the middle and flip it, you can see that it is perfectly brown, and this is only achievable on the highest heat. As you can see the bottom of the ribeye, this color means it's not ready to be cut yet. If you cut it now, the juices will flow out and the Kkotdeungsim will ultimately lose much of its flavor. Should the asparagus begin to burn, place them on top of the ribeye to prevent burning. Try not to cut them right away, as the proper way of serving them is with the Kkotdeungsim. At this point, the Kkotdeungsim is approaching a nice medium rare. Take the asparagus and begin serving it either on a plate or directly to the customers. Now that we can cut the ribeye, separate the ribeye portion out from the rest of the steak. Now cut the cap. As you can see now, this is a perfect medium rare. Again, serve on the plate and be sure to cut it into bite-sized pieces. Now would also be a good point to turn the heat down in preparation for cooking the Joomulruk, the cube short rib, which is the next and last item for the Modeum So Gui. Our ribeye portion has now reached a perfect char and is ready to be cut. For children and or ladies, cut the pieces slightly smaller so that they are easier to eat. Be sure to save the fat. You want to keep the fatty part and keep it crispy for them. Neither the Modeum So Gui or the Kkotdeungsim are cheap items, and you want to serve every single part of the beef to the customers. Cook this for a little longer and suggest to customers to not shy away from having this guilty pleasure, since the fat is where the flavor is for this grade of meat. This is very tasty when dipped in any of our sauces, whether it's Samjang, Yukjang, or Himalayan sea salt. Now we cook the Joomulruk. It is again recommended to stay at the table for this portion of cooking, since the marinade will easily burn and it is your duty to have it under control. Be sure that the pieces are not stacked on top of each other like so, otherwise the pieces will not cook evenly. All pieces should have a point of contact with the grill. The reason for the burning is because of the soy sauce and garlic, but a more accurate description of this process is caramelizing. Explain this to the customers if necessary. Be sure the heat is at its lowest point possible once flipped. Make sure that all the meat is grouped in the middle of the grill and not rolled to the side. On busy nights, inform the customers that in approximately 45 seconds after flipping, the Joomulruk will be a nice medium rare and you may leave the table to perform other tasks. Next, we cook the Antoya Galbi. One order comes with 2 rolls, and it is meant to be rolled out like so and to be cut on the grill during the unrolling process. Do not pre-cut strips of kalbi tableside before placing the meat on the grill. Do not leave the bones out of the cooking process or the garlic. This is a very expensive item on our menu, and it is probably the best barbecue item that we have, and we want to give them everything that is offered. The kalbi, along with other marinated meats, should be flipped between 40 seconds and 1 minute to prevent over-caramelization and or burning. The char that you see on the kalbi now is the ideal way of serving it. Some may misconstrue this as burning and may refuse to understand that it is a caramelization char instead. Gauge the situation and cook this to whatever is preferred by the customer. This medium rare is the perfect cook for the meat to be cut. Begin cutting now and display the pieces around the edge of the grill, unless the guests wish to be served directly, in which case you would distribute the meat to them. Separate the part of the meat closer to the bone from the ones that are further and place them at the center of the grill to be cooked on a higher heat, since this part of the kalbi can be tough to chew. Like other vegetables, place the garlic on top of the bones to prevent burning, but also as an appealing display of the dish. Now that the meat that are closest to the bones have cooked longer than the other meats, you may place them around the edge of the grill now. Separate out the cloves of garlic from the garlic bulb, and let the customers know that this roasted garlic is pre-cooked, and now that it is grilled, it is awesome to have with their meats as an additive or as a condiment. To maximize the value of the kalbi and let the customers eat every part, this is the part where we separate the meat that's directly on the bone. Again, this is a very expensive item, and we don't want to waste anything for the customers. Next, we have the Chadol Gui, or the thinly sliced ribeye. Be sure to place them neatly on a grill like so, and not dumped onto the grill in a messy way. Keep them in these stacked rolls while cooking will result in a bouncier texture and the juices will drip into the rolls themselves. Rushing to place a Chadol Gui on the grill usually results in a messy arrangement. Be sure to keep them neatly in rows like this. The crispiness will result in a much more pleasant texture that brings out the flavor. Brandish this to the guest as you flip the pieces while still maintaining the structure of the Chadol Gui on the grill. We would like to give a shout out to our server Justin, who learned this cooking technique from Atlanta, Georgia, and brought the structured way of cooking the Chadol Gui to us. Thank you, Justin. If you're feeling fancy, flip it like so for showmanship. Do not do this on your first try, or if you're not familiar with doing it this way. You can flip the Chadol Gui multiple times in order to achieve the appropriate crispiness that the Chadol Gui needs. Should there be multiple items ordered from the barbecue menu along with the Chadol Gui, always cook the Chadol Gui first since it cooks fast, and the ample amount of fat coats the grill nicely for the remaining items to be cooked on. Next we have the Buchesal, or the flat iron steak. A good indication that the Buchesal is ready to be flipped is the browning of the edges. As these get flipped, you can see that there is a nice sear on the other side. Although not as opulent as the ribeye, the Buchesal can be very exquisite if prepared properly. This is a leaner cut, so it will require a longer cooking process on higher heat to seal in as much of the flavor as possible. Since this cut is prepared the traditional Korean way, the silver skin is still prominent in the middle of each cut. Therefore, your cut into the Buchesal should always be right down the middle along the silver skin first, as it is not pleasant to eat to some customers. Line these halves at the edge of the grill cut side down so that the silver skin is further cooked even more, and make sure that the lining is neat for presentation. Cut the Buchesal into bite-sized pieces. As you can see, these are a perfect medium rare, but always ask the customer how they would like their Buchesal cooked should they have a different preference. Next we have the Woosul, our sliced beef tongue marinated in pineapple, miso, and scallions. Be sure that they are delicately placed onto the grill. Here we are placing them on the grill in a circular pattern since it is important to keep track of which ones were put down first. Even though we are cooking them unmarinated side down first, the thinness will cause them to burn easily. Cook each piece of Woosul for equal amounts of time. Since the flavor profile of Woosul is so important to highlight, do not cook them with a used grill, and always change the grill after cooking the Woosul before cooking anything else. Now it is time to flip them. Cooking them marinade side down will grill the flavor into the slices of Woosul themselves. Do not forget to squeeze the lemon. Next we have our Modeum Dweji Gui, our pork platter. Modeum Dweji Gui contains 3 different varieties of our pork: Samgyupsal, or the pork belly, Hangjeongsal, or the pork jowl, and Antoya Moksal, our marinated pork shoulder. Line the pieces of Samgyupsal neatly and stacked. A normal order of Samgyupsal will contain 2 long strips of pork belly. It is recommended to cut them in half and stack them like so but in the middle, so that they are cooked more evenly. Next to the Samgyupsal, we are placing our Hangjeongsal. Both of these meats take quite some time to cook. Therefore, you not only want to help save time for customers to eat, but for yourself, and for the table to be flipped in a timely manner. As we check under the Samgyupsal, this is the color that you want to achieve before flipping them, a nice golden brown that indicates crispiness. This is the most preferred way to have Samgyupsal and Hangjeongsal. Both of these meats are high in fat. It is okay to flip them once more than usual to achieve that perfect crispy texture. Now cut the Hangjeongsal into halves. Discreetly double check the cook on the inside of each piece as you're cutting it to ensure that the cooking is finished before serving. We'll flip the Samgyupsal once more, and you can see the beautiful bubbling of fat on top of the crispy golden brown texture. This also serves as an aesthetic appeal for the customers. Cut the Samgyupsal now into bite-sized pieces. Be sure that each size of the piece is consistent with another. This is another good opportunity to check the cook on the meat by discreetly seeing the middle of the meat. The width of each piece of the Samgyupsal should be the same as your tongue. Either serve them directly to the customers, separately on a plate, or align them in a circle on the edge of the grill. This all depends on how busy you are with your section and how much time you have for presentation. High-fat meats such as Samgyupsal and Hangjeongsal will accumulate a lot of fat in the cylinder beneath the grill. Continuing to cook with this much grease accumulated is dangerous, and it will likely result in a grease fire. Only begin cooking once the cylinder is changed. The final meat of the Modeum Dweji Gui to be cooked is Antoya Moksal. Remember, should there be a mix of non-marinated and marinated meats on the customer's table, always cook the non-marinated variety first unless specifically requested by the guest to serve the marinated meats first. Like all marinated meats, the Antoya Moksal needs to be flipped soon after first placing them on the grill. Cut them down the middle and serve into bite-sized pieces, just like you would with any other meats. As always, don't forget to put up your vents once finished cooking at the table. We encourage you as a server to take notes on any new information learned from this video and inform your manager that you've successfully completed this cooking tutorial and you will be tested on these cooking methods soon.